The moment you start fighting for a Formula One title, everything changes. Not just the pressure, not just the expectations, but the smallest weaknesses, the ones nobody noticed before, suddenly become the difference between glory and failure. And right now, one of the most exciting young drivers on the grid, Kimi Antonelli, has just admitted something that could define his entire championship battle. Because despite the hype, despite the raw speed, despite being thrown into one of the most high-pressure seats in Formula One, Antonelli has identified a critical flaw in his own performance. And here's the real question. Is this just a small learning curve, or the one weakness that could cost him the title? Let's break it down. Now on the surface, Antonelli's season looks almost unbelievable. A rookie stepping into a top-tier environment, immediately matching pace, consistently delivering strong race results, and showing maturity far beyond his experience. But Formula One isn't about looking fast, it's about executing perfectly across an entire race weekend. And that's where things start to get interesting. Because Antonelli himself has pointed out that his biggest area for improvement isn't raw speed, it's consistency across key moments, especially in qualifying and race execution under pressure. And if you understand Formula One, you know exactly how dangerous that is. Let's slow this down. In modern Formula One, qualifying isn't just about starting position, it's about controlling the race before it even begins. Track position dictates tyre life, strategy flexibility, and even energy deployment windows. If you start ahead, you dictate pace. If you start behind, you react. And Antonelli? He's fast, but not always precise when it matters most. There have been moments where a slight misjudgment, a fraction too late on throttle, a minor lockup, or imperfect tyre preparation has cost him critical tenths in qualifying. And in Formula One, tenths are everything. Just think about this for a second. What's the difference between P1 and P5 on the grid? Often less than 0.3 of a second. So when Antonelli talks about improving, he's not talking about seconds, he's talking about microscopic perfection. And that's where the technical side comes in. Let's talk about tyre preparation, because this is something most fans underestimate. In qualifying, especially Q3, the tyre has a very narrow operating window. The outlap becomes a science experiment. Drivers are weaving, braking aggressively, accelerating in bursts, all to generate the perfect temperature across the tyre surface and core. Too cold? No grip. Too hot? The tyre overheats and loses peak performance instantly. Antonelli has admitted that sometimes he struggles to consistently hit that perfect window lap after lap. And here's the scary part. This isn't just a driver issue. It's a combined system of driver feel, engineering data, and real-time adaptation. The Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team engineers can give him target temperatures, delta times, and instructions, but in the end, it's the driver who has to feel it. And that feel is something that usually takes years to master. Now imagine trying to perfect that while fighting for a championship. This is where things get intense. Because in a title fight, you're not just competing against the track, you're competing against drivers who have already mastered these details. Drivers who know exactly how to extract 100% from the car in the most critical moments. So every small inconsistency becomes amplified, and it doesn't stop at qualifying. Let's talk about race execution, another area Antonelli is actively working on. In Formula One, race pace isn't just about driving fast, it's about managing multiple systems simultaneously. Tyre degradation, brake temperatures, ERS deployment, fuel saving, wind direction changes, track evolution, and all of this changes lap by lap. Antonelli has shown flashes of brilliance in race pace, moments where he looks untouchable, but maintaining that level across an entire stint, that's where experience plays a huge role. For example, tyre degradation. Modern F1 tyres are extremely sensitive. If you push too hard in the opening laps, you might gain a second, but lose 5 seconds later in the stint. Experienced drivers know how to bank tyre life early, then attack later. Antonelli is still learning that balance, sometimes pushing slightly too hard, sometimes managing too conservatively. And that inconsistency, it affects strategy. Let's break this down strategically. Imagine two scenarios. In scenario A, a driver manages tyres perfectly, extends the stint, and opens up multiple strategy options: undercut, overcut, or flexible pit windows. In scenario B, a driver degrades tyres too quickly, forcing an early pit stop, locking the team into a predictable strategy. Antonelli at times has found himself closer to scenario B. And in a championship fight, predictability is dangerous, because rival teams will exploit it instantly. Now here's where things get even more fascinating. Antonelli isn't unaware of any of this. In fact, the most impressive part of this entire situation is his self-awareness. He knows exactly where he needs to improve. He knows the difference between being fast and being complete. And that's rare for a driver at this stage. But awareness alone isn't enough. Execution is everything. Let's talk about energy deployment, one of the most complex aspects of modern Formula One. The ERS system allows drivers to deploy electrical energy for extra power, but it's limited. Managing it effectively can mean the difference between defending a position or losing it. Antonelli has shown strong understanding here, but again, consistency is key. Deploy too early, you're vulnerable later in the straight. Deploy too late, you miss overtaking opportunities. It's a constant balancing act. And when you combine this with tyre management and race strategy, the complexity multiplies. This is why Formula One is often described as a game of chess at 300 km/h. And Antonelli, he's learning to play that game in real time. Now let's pause for a second and ask something important. Is this level of imperfection normal for a driver in his position, or is it a warning sign? Because history shows us something interesting. Many great drivers had similar phases early in their careers, flashes of brilliance mixed with small inconsistencies. But the difference between good and great is how quickly they eliminate those weaknesses. Antonelli is at that exact crossroads. And here's another layer to this story: pressure. When you're not expected to fight for a title, mistakes are part of the process. But when you suddenly find yourself in a championship battle, every mistake carries weight. Every missed apex, every imperfect outlap, every strategic misjudgment, it all adds up. And psychologically, that pressure can either sharpen a driver or expose them. So here's a question for you. Do you think Antonelli has what it takes to adapt quickly enough, or will these small weaknesses cost him when it matters most? Because the margins in Formula One are brutal. We're talking about a sport where a 0.2-second mistake can define an entire weekend. And right now, Antonelli is operating right on that edge. But here's the twist. These weaknesses, they might actually be the reason he becomes even stronger. Because identifying a problem is the first step to solving it. And Antonelli isn't hiding from it, he's analysing it, breaking it down, working with his engineers to improve every detail, from simulator sessions focusing on tyre warm-up procedures, to data analysis comparing his laps with teammates, to refining his driving inputs, throttle, braking, steering, to maximise consistency. This is the process of building a champion, not just through speed, but through precision. And if he gets this right, that's when things become dangerous for everyone else on the grid. Because a fast driver with weaknesses is beatable, but a fast driver who eliminates those weaknesses, that's when dominance begins. So as this title fight continues, keep an eye on the details. Watch his qualifying laps. Watch his tyre management in the opening stints. Watch how he handles pressure in critical moments. Because those small details will tell you everything. And they will decide whether Kimi Antonelli becomes a title contender or a future champion in the making. So let me leave you with this. Are we witnessing the early stages of a future legend learning his craft, or the one weakness that could define this championship battle? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I really want to hear your take on this. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the technical side of Formula One, make sure to subscribe for more cinematic analysis, race breakdowns, and inside stories from the world of F1.